All right, good morning, good afternoon. I'm Christina Ashmit. I'm a Senior Program Manager in MPSD Development, and with me is Chris Adams. Chris, say hello.
Oh, hello, everybody. Welcome. So we've just determined that the size of the audience is directly proportional to the size of the title of the session.
Yeah, three lines of very compact text.
Yeah, so it's,
you know it's going to be great.
She's going to be doing most of the talking. I am officially the demo monkey for this session. So in order to keep myself busy, what I have decided to do is for all those that do, how many of you do Twitter? Not enough?
Right, all 10 of you can talk
to
him.
So we're going to take your questions at the end of the session, but if you just cannot wait, if you will use the hashtag #MMS B323. That's #MMS B323. I'm going to be live tweeting. All right, so bring it on, your best questions. Otherwise, I'm going to turn it over to Christina to rock and roll.
All right. I was going to call you the demo god, by the way. Not the demo monkey, but you know.
I like it.
Okay, so session objectives and takeaways. So this is basically the agenda. The first, we want to level set everybody with application model basics, so sort of understand the model, why we would use it, what benefits does it bring. Talk about some core package conversion manager functionality, features functionality that you can take advantage of. Review the best practices. And then Chris is going to demo how we create the plugin. We kind of showed it at the State of the Union, but it's going to be more in depth, kind of go through a little slower. So you can see, you know, how you would create a plugin, why you would use it, what the benefits are going to be. And then obviously, you know, get PCM today. So we are available and shipped on the Download Center. So key components of the application model. So the application is basically metadata, right? You create an application in Configuration Manager 2012, which you create metadata that defines what that app is and what makes it up. And so here, there's components of it. There's deployment types, so you can either have app-v, you can have Windows script, MSI, or a mobile.cab file. And then you provide additional metadata around detection method, requirement rules, dependencies, and content. The actual physical bits is the last thing. Why do you use the application model? So you're able to do user-based targeting. Using the app model, you have evaluation at runtime, so as the user gets policy, the policy evaluates whether it's there. The detection method helps them decide if it's already there. They don't have to reinstall it. There's no reoccurring advertisements. It all happens at runtime. So you get the state-based application. You get more control over requirements. So you're able to say as part of the metadata, I want it to be on Windows 7 x64. I want it to be with so much free space, and evaluate that all before we try to put the application on there. And if it's already there, then we just cancel out and tell you it's already installed. The idea is to deliver the right application to the right device at the right time. That's the marketing sentence around the value of it. The evaluation at runtime, the targeting different deployment types to different types of devices to the same user, not having to do the mapping of this user has this machine, and then target the machine and hope that user logs on, that kind of thing. So that's the power of the app model. So how do you get there? So the first step is to migrate your 2007 package of programs to Configuration Manager 2012 using the migration tools. And you run a schedule migration job, you do the migration. Then, once you migrate your packaging programs, they show up in the console under the packages, little node, subnode called packages. And then you have to decide on what your options are. So your first option is to do nothing. You can leave them as legacy package of programs. You don't have to convert them, you don't have to rebuild them, they'll run just like they are. You can manually recreate them or convert them, so you can go in and create a new application and associate with that content, create deployment types, requirement rules, fill out the wizard that's there and create them yourselves. Or you can use PCM. And the goal of PCM is to help you to convert them automatically, to get a feel for what the package and programs in your environments look like. Are they automatically able to convert? What kind of work or effort is going to be involved in you converting them using our tool set, or maybe manually converting them? Okay, so what's a good fit? The best fit, I would say, are user-facing applications, things that you're going to target to users, because that's sort of the power of the application model. So we think that that's the best fit. Oh, there's 3 deployment types for that again, the XC, the MSI, the app-v, and then sort of what's not a good fit. So if you have a lot of packaging programs that you've invested a lot of work in over the years, you really want to evaluate which one of those you bring over. Do you have end-of-life packages? Maybe you just keep them where they are till they expire, right? You might have system maintenance tools, things that don't necessarily have a lot of content, or maybe it's just a script, doesn't have a payload around it, or a bits, a set of bits that you deploy. So there are certain things that you don't necessarily want to migrate over. We suggest you keep those there. Okay, So that's sort of the application model basics. Now we're going to talk about core features. There's really two features. This is the slide we showed the State of the Union. I'm just going to build it. Okay. So the two basic features of PCM is the analysis engine, so the ability to look at all those packages and programs and analyze the state that they're in. Are they, a good fit? So maybe it's not applicable. We can determine to a certain degree of accuracy that it's not applicable to the app model, and so you could just ignore those. And then you have your automatic, everything is really cut and dried, it's really easy, and we're just going to automatically convert it for you. And then there's this set in the middle that are manual, or maybe we don't really know. We have some kind of error, unknown, or not sure that you would have to take action on it. So we built an engine that allows you to analyze those. And you can schedule it offline, and you can go back to it, and you can start building a plan or a deployment plan around how you're going to move these over. And then the last or most powerful part is the actual conversion process. So this is a wizard that runs through it and takes all the pieces from the package and program and puts them in the right spot for the app model and builds all that for you so that you don't have to manually go through it. So that's really where the big power is. And then this extensibility model allows you to create your own plugin that you can use to remove wrappers or provide information that we can't interrogate the package or program and get that information, but you know what it is, or you know how you wrote, or you wrapped it all up so you know where it is. And if things are consistent across all your packages, you can use the plugin to do that. The other sort of use scenario is around sort of templatizing. So in the app model, there's more metadata that you can assign an app than you could in the package program. So for instance, there's a help desk field. What if you wanted all of your apps to have the help desk field filled out and shows up in the application catalog? You could build a plugin that basically stamps that information on every package and program that we convert into the app model, so that you have to go back, open it up, add that in, for instance.
Out of curiosity, how many of you currently in 2007 use a wrapper?
Oh, well, all right then. You probably really like the PCM plugin.
They may be interested, so that's good.
All right.
It's good to know.
So and then once you get that all done, you convert them, then you're able to target them for deployments to users in the application model. Okay, so schedule package analyzer. So like I said, the first thing is really about analyzing. The SPA, we call this SPA for short, schedule package analyzer, allows you to schedule the analysis. If you have a lot of packages or programs, you could take a long time to interrogate all of those, get the information about it, and so we allow you to do that, off hours. So you can schedule it, you can select, chunk it up and say, I only want to do so many, every night, or you can do it all at once. We create the dashboard, give you an experience to let you see what your status is, how many have you analyzed, how many have you waiting to analyze, how many are automatic and manual, right? So nice little dashboard. And then we have an offline report, and the idea here is that you can run the analysis. We can give you all the information we can figure out about those package of programs, and you can take that off, you can print it, you can take it offline, you can leave it saved as a file on your laptop, look at it later, and you're able to look at all of the information or metadata that we were able to extract from the package and be able to determine what you want to do from a planning perspective, right? You may be able to see that you have 100 packages or programs that have the same error, and so maybe that's a good candidate for a plugin. Or maybe you'll find out that everything is different, right? There's no pattern or anything that's consistent, and so they're all going to require a lot of work. And then maybe you want to evaluate whether you really need that application anymore. So those kinds of activities can happen offline. That's the analyzer. Oh, sorry, I jumped ahead of myself. Look at that. So then this is sort of the report. This is a little screenshot of the report, and Chris is going to give us a demo of this. I believe that's the next thing. There we go. All right, Chris.
Yeah, so as Christina mentioned, basically what we want to make sure that you understand. How many of you have used PCM? Okay, not enough. That's good. All right, so for the rest of you, you should all run out to the download center. One thing that I want to clarify that a lot of folks asked after the State of the Union is because of how integrated PCM looks. In this regard, I'm going to go ahead and open up the console. You'll see what I mean by that is that it's very difficult to understand where Config Manager ends and PCM begins because of that integration. There was a lot of reasons we did that. For example, when you get Config Manager 2012, all the data that PCM stores about your packages and programs is actually already in box. All right? The only difference is that when you download PCM and you install that on your Configuration Manager system, is that we basically light those features up. For an example, if I go ahead to the software library location and I take a look under packages, One of the things that you won't see is this readiness column when you get 2012 installed and you have an installed PCM. Now, if you right-click on that and you went and looked at the options and you added it in there, you absolutely will see it. And it will show unknown, even though you've not installed PCM. When you install PCM, we move that to be a higher priority and we turn that check on and so that it shows up in the default view. So the first thing you're going to notice is that we've turned that on. Beyond that, we also add ribbon and context or right-click actions to the system. So that comes available when you install PCM. We'll talk a little bit more about a strategy for those of you that have test environments versus production. You can put PCM either place, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. One of the things you can do is you can certainly organize your packages into folders. What I want to show here is that we have quite a few packages here in the root node, as well as I have some specific HR applications, what we actually have as a Boston primary site for Contoso. And you'll see that we have quite a few of the actual applications here, packages and programs. And you can take a look at each one of them. You'll see this is actually an MSI exec using an MSI. Versus you'll see this one, we've actually are using a custom wrapper. For all those that raised your hand, you're going to get details on how you handle that at the State of the Union. How many of you were at the State of the Union? Okay, so the other day I said smoke and mirrors. That was a poor choice of words, so I retract that and say that it really did work. It wasn't smoke and mirrors. I was trying to just say that I had to speed it up. All right, so I'm glad that a lot of you are here so that I can actually do that retraction. But long story short is I'm going to investigate this at some point. But the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to look at your packages. You have a couple of options. You share the schedule package analyzer, and because of that deep integration in Config Manager, one of the first things that we're going to suggest you do is we use the SMS provider. So we're going to, when you tell us to go and analyze, if you have thousands of applications, and we've tested onwards in the high thousands of applications or packages and programs, the best scenario for you to go through is to actually use this schedule analyze status. I actually had not run that prior to the State, in the State of the Union. I had prior run it. I'm going to run it here. You're going to see for about 32 packages, it's going to take us about probably a couple of minutes here. Let me explain what we're doing here. Is we're actually going through the SMS provider, and we're actually looking at all of the packages, programs, and as well as any of the collections that they're actually targeted to. And the reason we're doing that, some of the internals, one is we're looking at the packages to determine some metadata about that. So what is the properties there? And then we're looking at the programs to understand, are they actually MSIs? In a minute, we're going to go through some of the rules, all right? But all of this is actually happening against these, and we're actually actively doing this. One of the key things that you'll do is you'll go and schedule this. What is a good downtime for your environment? You'll go schedule this to run. When you're done, you're going to come in and you're going to see all the readiness values. So at that point, PCM has done its job of actually trying to tell you one of about 5 states. All right, so we're going to let it get done here. It says it stopped. So if you see the schedule here, it says not scheduled versus scheduled. You can just set that up. The interesting thing that you'll do is that once you've actually analyzed this, what we'll actually do, I'm just doing this to actually change the graphic here when it comes up here so it won't be 32 unknown. Come on there, buddy.
You know you can do it.
I guess it doesn't know I'm on stage. Somebody tell the system I'm on stage right now. Okay, let's see if, wait a minute. Okay, all right, Config Manager. Houston.
Okay, stop clicking. Give it a second.
Anybody have any suggestions what to do to speed this up? That's Windows 8, man. Okay, hang on. There's one thing you can do. Have y'all seen this feature in Windows? I'm going to show you something. Now, this is not for the faint of heart. Boom. It's not a PCM feature. All right. So what we're going to do now we're going to go and do this. This should not happen to you at home. All right? When you go home, it should not do that. So, didn't actually practice that as part of my demos. Bear with me.
That's all right.
Okay. So now we're
Take your
back.
time.
All I was really wanting to do is show you this picture.
Yay.
Isn't that a lot prettier? You know, I guess demo gods got me. What I wanted to do is go ahead and say generate a scan here. It's really important. Last year, we did a PCM session, and it was funny that a lot of you, this is a feature that we added kind of late in the cycle. It wasn't planned out, and it was directly from feedback from all of you. The first thing you said to me is, why do I have to marry myself to the console to find out what my readiness values is? Why can't you help me get a strategy offline and outside of the console? And this report is exactly what we did there. And what we did is we basically said, hey, you don't need to go into the console. You do have to run this, but once you've done this, we have it in an XML file that you can open up with Internet Explorer or whatever you want. You can zip it up. We gave you a sample XLST. If you don't like our colors, you're welcome to change it. But basically, this is a report that really is going to allow you to see an overview of your enterprise. So if you're actually a config manager, admin, you're going to see everything. If you're actually only an application administrator, you're only going to see what you actually have access to. That's one of the things PCM does, is focus on ensuring that we adhere to the RBAC model, where that you have the delegated admin type of structure. Here you're seeing, if you wanted to, you can easily see that we have, .NET 3.5 is manual, and how many programs it has. This will really help you in environments where you are basically unsure of what you want to move. I like it. Bill Anderson likes to call it when we were talking to him. This is the config manager. Often is the galactic Hoover, meaning once it's in there, you really never get it out. So you have like years and years of applications. We want to make sure you don't have to move that. Some of that stuff, we want to clean it out for you. This is how you'll do it. You'll do a strategy and say, you know what? I don't want, see these things right here? These are not important to me for whatever reason. And I'll show you a strategy of how we did that. Ignore that it says UDI apps. Imagine that just said garbage. You can move those apps to the garbage folder, and then you know that you don't want to actually ever deal with those from a package conversion manager perspective. So I'm going to go ahead and really show you the easiest, and we'll show you the rules, but I am going to show you here how to convert a package. You can see in the ribbon here you have 3 options. And this will be the end of this demo. And then I'll come back and get into some more of the complicated scenarios. So we'll click OK. So now we're analyzing, and we're literally going to be moving this to the application, over to an application with the appropriate deployment type. Now, the one thing that I'll tell you about automatic is that we consider automatic, we tried to make that a scenario where it's as fast as possible. If you want to move over packages that have been advertised to collections, and you would like to move all of that intent that you've embedded in previous WCL queries. So how many of you have actually created a nice SQL or WCL query that actually says, only target this OS with this amount of space? How many of you have done that before? Wouldn't it be nice if we could move that intent into global conditions and requirement rules? Well, PCM can do that. The catch there is it won't do it if you do automatic. What you have to do is, even though it said automatic, you will go to fix and convert. The reason being is when you're doing the galactic Hoover, we want you to say what intent you really want to keep. So what I'm going to do here is take a look at packages. We have another automatic. Notice that I could go ahead and just say convert, but I can also do fix and convert. We got no dependencies that we're working on. We have a detection method. This is where I'm talking about. In this case, this does not have any requirement rules, no embedded WCL, but it could have a set of things that says only for 500 gigs or more, only for Windows 7 x64. All of those rules that you put in 2007 because it had to be done on the server and now is done at the client, you can check which ones you want to bring over, and we will actually create the global conditions and the requirement rules for you. So does that make sense in regards to how there's the fast method and then there's the fix and convert method? And then what I'll do is go ahead and convert this as well, just because it's fun. to see it finish. So who was that laughing? Yes.
There you go.
This is all right. So if we go into applications, we'll go ahead and see that there should be 2 of them converted. Everything is available in the deployment types. So you can just see some information here. The detection method got moved over. Any of the properties that you've had set on that packaging program. So there's our MSI product code. So we interrogated, we went out to the MSI. We actually grabbed the product code from that, and we embed that so that that's the way that we can actually detect whether or not it's available or not. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and have Christina run us through some of the rules so that you know the internals, and then I'll come back.
All right. Thanks, Chris. Okay, so these are the states, the different kinds of readiness states that we have. The first one is unknown, which is basically the analysis hasn't been run yet, so everything will be unknown initially. Then we have not applicable, so these are the ones without any content, so they're not appropriate for the app model. And then we have manual, which is sort of you have to do something, so that's really the fix and convert. You have to tell us something about it. We can't automatically do it. And then automatic is it's easily converted. We know everything we need to know to convert it. We can find out ourselves, and so we can automatically convert that. And then after it's done, obviously you have converted, so for status. So the manual stuff, so this is sort of a hierarchy. These 3 things, if you have at least these 3 things, we'll tell you it's manual, right? You must have content. You must have a content share. It has to be somewhere. We have to be able to know where it is, right? It has to be a software distribution package, and it has to have at least 1 program. If it has those 3 things, we'll say it's manual, right? Then, if it has these other 3 things, so if there's 6 things are met, then it's automatic. And that is it contains only 1 MSI. The content has to be specifically an MSI, and there can only be 1 of them. It can't have any unconverted dependencies, so if it has a dependent app on it, that has to be converted as well. If it's not already converted, then it won't be automatic. It will be fix and convert. And then the content has to be accessible to us. So we have to be able to go and contact the share that the content is at and be able to see it and interrogate it and pull out the MSI product code, give you detection method, that kind of stuff. So if those 6 things are met, it's automatic. If only 3 are met, it's manual. Make sense? Everything else, not applicable. All right, so the conversion process. First thing we do is interrogate the package. We look for properties, program properties. We interrogate the MSI for the product code and detection methods. And then we create applications, and the application, which is basically the metadata folder for it, if you will. And then we create the DTs. And I have no idea what that says on the end, so DTs. Okay, then we create the DTs, which is the application name, the DT name, and the detection method. So for application model to work, for us to be able to convert, really the detection method is what becomes key. Because since the applicability of the application happens at runtime, we have to be able to detect that it's there or not. That's sort of the linchpin, if you will, for the entire application model. So the detection method becomes really critical. And then there's 28 optional properties or additional properties we interrogate and get out. And then if they're there, like Chris was saying, some of them are global conditions, requirement rules based on the collection that you're advertised to. We can get up to 28 additional properties that we'll move over for you. That's it. That's all the slides I had.
All right. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the more advanced scenarios here. And that would be one of the things that I mentioned in the State of the Union, and I want to make sure that everybody's clear, is manual is a little misleading as a readiness state. How many of you have looked at manual and said, oh my goodness, I have to manually do all of these packages? How many of you thought that when you used PCM? And then you were like, those Microsoft guys, they've lost their mind. We went through, so manual is not manual. I know that sounds odd, but it basically, if there was a way that we could change that word and actually say, we need your help, but for some reason they didn't like that term. They had to simplify that, and the word they came up with was manual. All right, so manual just simply means you as the administrator needs to provide us some information. If you do that, then we're going to be able to easily go ahead and provide some information. Many of you saw, example here. This is a wrapper. I'm going to go ahead and just show the example of how I went through and did fix and convert. This is how you can either do automatic, as I showed earlier, or you can do manual as well. So you go through here. You see that there's no unconverted dependencies in this case. But you're going to see that there's a problem, and the reason is that, as you saw, software install.exe, which is a wrapper, has all of the logic around what the detection method is, because that's how you had to build it in 2007. So what you need to do as an administrator is just help us, the engine for PCM, and that is to provide us information. And what this is basically a set of minimal things you have to do to get it into the app model. So we don't ask you a lot of frivolous questions. We actually, things like priority order. Christina mentioned earlier that you have to have only one MSI. You may be like, why is that a rule? Well, because in the app model, you have to say what the order of priority is in regards to for the deployment type. When that's the case, you need to tell us that. So we set it to manual so that you can tell us, this is number 1, this is number 2. So that it may be as easy as you just reordering something to make it go through. Detection method, that's a little bit different. You may need to provide us, if it's an MSI, you may need to actually provide us a Windows installer PID, and that's what this looks like. You can also do file system or registry. I'm going to go ahead and steal a little bit from our wrapper here, that a little bit later. So software install uses a actual XML. I've simplified the XML significantly, but the one thing that you're seeing in here is that we have setup.exe, and that we actually determine if it's installed by this DAT file. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and just simply show how to copy paste this. This is the exact same screen that you would use if you were building an app today in the app model. We just reuse config managers. So this is not something that PCM built. This is the engine within config manager. So all I've got to do is come over and say, if you find this file, then the config manager client now knows that the advanced tracker application is actually installed on that machine. And the reason that we do this is that going back to the very beginning, we talked about the basics of the app model. One of the power is that we've returned it to the client. The agent does all of the checks to see, is this installed or is it not installed? Detection method is fundamental. If you get it wrong, you will never have it install, or you will never have it stop trying to install. It's a big, big deal. So in this case, that's what we're actually doing here, is telling it how, as an agent, to detect whether or not we have it. You can get really complicated. We could add some more logic in here if we wanted to, and then move them and group them. I'm going to do the simplest approach. Click OK. Now we said, OK, we've got everything we need for this package to be converted. And then we'll go through and do a script, and we'll give it a second here. And then when we complete, we will then have an application. I will go show you that detection method that is set up appropriately. And then we'll do next. And you can see that it's converted. Some questions you may ask is, can I convert more than once? And the answer is yes. So you can choose and convert it and say, ooh, I didn't like that. I want to do a couple of tweaks. You can easily go and reconvert it again. And we'll just simply stamp right over the top of it. So that is very much possible. So that converted state means we've done it, but it doesn't mean it's finality. You don't have to necessarily take what that completed is. But let's go ahead. I'm sorry, I have to go look in order here. Advance payment. So I just had to check and see which one to go look at. So if you look at properties, we went ahead and brought over. Sorry, wrong click screen. So this was actually running in 2007 as software install.exe with a provided XML. Now you can see that I have the detection method set up for this. So this is how I went through the fix and convert experience. We also move a lot of other things in such as, can this install as system, install as user. A lot of the settings here, requirements would be moved as well if you had any of those set up. So we're able to move pretty much from a bulk perspective. The only catch is that if you don't have a set of about 4 to 5 things, we will need you, it'll become manual and you'll need to provide them. Okay?
Can you show the collection?
The collection?
Do you have one that shows that?
This is the part of the show where we go impromptu. How many of you would like to see the collection work? That's not enough. How many of you want to see? Okay, all right, that's better. That's better. All right.
You got to find one?
So if this doesn't work, there's two things going to happen. One is I'm going to hold you responsible, and two, I'm going to figure out how to do it after. So let's go ahead and take a look here. I believe I have an app in here. Unfortunately, it's not tattooed. Let's see if any of these. Let's go ahead and do fix and convert. You're going to like this detection method.
Nope.
So that's not a good example. I may not have it here.
Okay.
One with the collection. I apologize for that. I do have that back at the mothership, though. Mothership equals Redmond. Sorry. So.
Next time.
I don't know. What I might do is I'm going to let you jump back before I get into the extensibility. I'm going to scramble back over there and see if I can find if any of these have any collection requirements. Is that good?
Yeah, that's good.
All right, and you're not allowed to ask me to do anything that's not on the script.
Yes.
Again. All right.
My bad. All right, moving right along.
Yeah,
All right. So best practices. Oh, so you got time. This takes a minute.
Yeah, talk slow.
Okay. All right. So this is sort of the suggested best practice to move. Actually, it's really about just migrating your apps, your packages and programs in general, not necessarily about PCM. But obviously, the first thing you want to do is upgrade your DPs if you have any shared DPs. If you're not familiar with that, there's a couple of migration talks that talk about how you can share your 2007 DPs with your 2012 clients. So if you have any of those, you want to upgrade them. You want to migrate your objects, like I said. So in this case, we're migrating to a lab. So the idea is that if you migrate to the lab, you can do all of your application or package conversion, testing in the lab, and you can get things right the way you want them. You can test them in a lab environment, and so it's sort of standard deployment best practices. And then you can actually export the applications once you've converted them, tested them, made any changes that you want. You can actually export them. It's all XML metadata, and then you can import them into your production 2012 environment. So that's one of the suggested best practices to try to get you up and running and to have the least amount of impact. Another best practice is really about converting dependency applications first. So one of the benefits of the report or the offline report you build your strategy is to get the most automatic. If you have a lot of packages that are dependent on other packages, then you want to go in order. So you want to do the dependency one first, and then your other ones will become automatic. And then the idea here is to concentrate on the user-centric ones, the applications that you want to target to users, that you want to give that sort of user-centric or people-centric experience to. So the intention is for the applications that are targeted to groups, say your HR apps that are targeted to a specific user collection, and anything that you want state-based enforced. So if you have mandatory apps today in 2007, those are also good candidates because instead of having all of the logic around who has to have it and what requirements they have to meet to have that app installed, you can push that all down to the client, and then at run install, it gets installed. And then if the user deletes it, it will go right back the next policy evaluation. So every 15 minutes, you could get in this loop where the user removes it, and you put it back on, and then they remove it, and you put it back on, right? So, and all of that happens locally. It doesn't have to go back to the server, wait for policy resync, wait to be added to a collection, right? All that stuff. And then the dashboard, use the dashboard to track progress. We tried to create a dashboard that was going to be usable, that is colorful. Hopefully you like looking at it, staring at it, and it's useful. Check the requirements once converted to make sure they're sufficient. So there's some requirements that we transfer over, and there might be additional requirements that were built as global conditions in the product out of the box for SECM 2012. Oh, Config Manager 2012. And you may want to add additional ones, so you may want to check through them and see that we got everything that you care for that actually models the intent for where this app belongs, what machine is eligible. All right, so now we're going to go high-level overview of the plugin. So this is really about an extensibility story, and the idea here, our original thought about creating the plugin is really around helping people go wrapperless. You saw in the room, most of you have wrappers. In 2007, a lot of people modeled the intention for the app or the target scenarios within a wrapper to get more a richer experience around ensuring that you got the right machines, the right users, the right apps. So this is a programmatic way to go wrapperless, assuming your wrappers do a certain amount of standard things. This is an easy way to help you do that. Well, I guess it's easier. The idea here is if you build a plugin, you can extend PCM, and then we can move more of the manual things to automatic. So again, if there's certain patterns in why you have wrappers or why you are falling into the manual bucket, and it's a simple, PowerShell script you can write, then you can write the script, PCM can consume it, and then you can get more of your packages into an automatic conversion state, and you can just schedule it to convert, and then you can walk away and it'll be done. And then, like I mentioned earlier, there's an opportunity to templatize, if you will. I did a visit with one of our TAP customers, and even after we converted our automatics, we would go back into the application in the model, and we would still set metadata that you didn't have in your package and programs in 2007, but you had in the app model. And you always wanted to stamp the same kind of things. Maybe you want to say you always want it to be available to be installed in a task sequence, and now you didn't have that set, but now you want to go back and you want to set it. Or you want to set a help desk number, or you want to set some other metadata that you have in the app model in 2012 that you didn't have in 2007. This is an opportunity to build a little plugin that will just stamp every time we convert. We just stamp that information in there for you, so you don't have to go back through the property pages and select them for each app. Okay, so this is how it works. So you have PCM and then you have a plugin. They are two separate things. PCM we provide, the plugin is what you would have to build. So you have your migrated package. This is your package program from 2007. You've migrated to 2012. You run, this is actually, I guess, you run the analysis and then you're going to convert, right? When we convert the app, we basically take the application XML, the metadata, and we write it to a file. And then when you have the plugin involved, we stop there and then we launch the plugin and we basically read additional XML. The plugin is basically a methodology. You write a script, an executable, Visual Basic, whatever you want. And that basically creates another XML file. So we launch PCM, we write the app XML to a file, and we stop, then we read the plugin's XML file. We modify it, or basically we merge it with this yellow one up here. So if you think about it, we have the PCM XML file, we have your red plugin XML file, and we basically merge them together. Where's my little animation? There we go. We exit the plugin, and then we read that merged XML, and then that's what we use to convert into the application model. We take that XML data, and we put that in the Configuration Manager 2012 application model. And that's what becomes the application. So that's sort of how that works. So this is my wrapper stride. So when we did we did a little bit of research, and we felt one of the things we came up with, and I don't know if it's representative of this audience, is that a lot of people had wrappers because they had to provide detection methods. So you wanted to know if it was there already, so you wrapped it and you provided your own detection method. That's a lot of what we did at MSIT with wrappers. And so one of our ideas here around creating the plugin is to handle sort of the common business scenarios, the scenarios that happen all the time that will allow you to move away from the wrapper. The application model was built specifically to handle most wrapper scenarios. The requirement rules are around, is this machine applicable for this application? The global conditions are around, who do you want to have it? What condition has to be met for it to be installed? You have, the metadata, the deployment type, if you're on this kind of computer, if you're this user, if it's my primary machine, all of that stuff around how to get the application installed. There are a couple of things that aren't in the application model that will actually still keep you using wrappers, right? And so I think there's two, and that is the pre and post action. So if you have a lot of pre and post actions in your wrappers, you most likely will not be able to remove the wrapper. But our hope is with the plugin or extensibility for PCM, you'll actually be able to have a much thinner wrapper than maybe you were creating with your 2007 infrastructure. All right, you're on.
All right, so I'll take we'll go back to the...
Oh, that's unexpected.
That's the largest zoomed-in remote desktop session has ended. If anybody's wondering why that's happened, it's because I logged in over there to figure out if I had anything.
Okay.
Good gracious. Houston, what's the magnify? Anybody got? What's a shortcut for that? Windows. Somehow we've got magnified here. Control minus. Windows minus. But this is the largest screen I've ever seen.
Here, let's do it again. Let's try to switch again. Go back.
Be small.
One more. Oh, there it goes. Hold on, hold.
Be very small.
There you go. Awesome. Look, I fixed it again. Twice in an hour period. Just want that on the record.
You're getting cocky on me, Christina.
That's right.
All right. So. Okay. So we're getting back in here. Going back to the, I went back to my report because I didn't think fast enough on my feet for the impromptu ask of a demo. So I went to the report, and I was trying to find out, did I bring anything down from Redmond that has collection IDs? So you can see here, just using that report, the answer is no. So I could have gone through every package and program, but the report will tell you if there's collections that we've detected that has requirement rules. Now, that doesn't mean they don't have WCL rules on some of the collections. Keep in mind, we're looking for specific type of criteria, and that is intent. And what we mean by that is things like global conditions and requirement rules. So do you actually have OS equals this? Do you actually have this much drive space? So this was the easy way for me to answer the question. I just didn't think on my feet fast enough, but that's how I determined, no, I can't demo that. If you're interested, while I'm down here, by the way, my business cards are up here. I can grab some back from the mothership, chase me down. I'll show you everything, how it works offline. We do have examples of it. I just didn't bring it, so shame on me. So moving forward. So just real quick, I like to find out, I mean, just how many of you have script wrappers that are VBS scripts? It's like most of you in the audience. I do that. How many of you have like Flexera or Wise wrappers?
Oh, okay. Still a pretty good chunk.
That's a pretty good number too. All right. So it gives you a little bit of an idea. Hopefully it makes sense. What you're basically doing is with the plugin. We basically broke the engine up to say, listen, if there's a certain setting in the configuration, the analysis engine will then now merge together both the details that we have from the packages and programs and any of the information that you've actually outputted to us. Okay? So what I'm going to first do is I'm going to go ahead and shut down. And I'm going to give you an example. So this is the configuration. I'll look at that in just a minute. So this is the plugin that I wrote to actually demonstrate this. It's in PowerShell. It doesn't have to be. We have an SDK that when you actually go to TechNet, you can get our documentation on exactly how to do this. We actually have a sample in there, so that gives you something to start building from. So that's the first thing that you can do. But I'm going to go ahead and just kind of open up so that you get an idea. This was the point where I normally would say the smoke and mirrors. Actually, it was really doing something. So this is where I'm retracting that. If we scroll over here, if I don't make the screen so darn big. So I'll do this. So you get a little bit of an idea here. Basically what we're doing is we have a module that has a lot of shared information in it that actually opens up Config Manager and then also looks at all of our custom wrapper information. So you can see here we load the assemblies for SCCM. We basically deserialize the XML file, all right, that we've created, and then we actually go through and start checking some rules here, all right. Eventually what we want to do is parse the XML file, all right. So we're basically just looking, so that's after we've used this share model. So I'm going through this fast because sessions are not great to go through scripting code real well. So one thing I will tell you is that at the end of this, we're going to give you references and resources. One of those is actually my blog. I'll blog this, so you'll see the code and you can actually see what exactly, and I'll actually provide you one of the files so that you can do this at your leisure. So the shared functions where it gets pretty interesting. This is where we actually, you'll see that we connect to the site server and do some other data here. And I'm going to scroll down to the part that I care about. So this is basically enhanced detection method. So this is where we're actually doing some work with the detection method. And what was it I was trying to look for? Load SEC. This is where we get the application object from the server. And then I was looking for the section where we actually strip, and I might be in the wrong file. Let me go back to this. I was going to show you where we strip out and open up. What I was looking for here is the deployment where we actually open up this file. So basically what we do is we go look at the package and program. We look at the program, we find out the command line. We see the command line said software install.exe. And then what we basically said is we basically trim that out and look for the additional data. I'm having trouble finding the actual line where we're looking for the XML. For sake of time and for embarrassment, I'm going to move forward. But at the end of the day, you've already seen what it's doing. But basically, I open up the XML file. I go in there, and one of the things that is really important about this is keep in mind, PCM is not a click one button and go, like meaning the plugin isn't. The thing that we found to be interesting, all of you raised your hands, you all have 900 different ways to accomplish your job and when it comes to deploying applications. The plugin is for you to use that knowledge. So you can do whatever you need to do, and so you'll know how you formatted your actual set of data. So you'll write a script that will interrogate that, pull that out. The only thing we ask is that you write it out in an XML format that we understand. So the SDK is going to actually tell you. So when we actually make this change, I'm going to show you the XML blob that we actually create that is actually from the plugin that then we pick up and use to make the conversion. Okay? So an example is what I'm trying to say is that you basically have a PowerShell that looks at this and says, oh, that's the detection method. All right, I'm going to store that in an XML stream. So let's watch this in action. So once you've written a plugin just as this, you can do it however you would like. The only thing that you have to do is you go in. I made it easy to look through here. I changed this to actually now have this line. And I comment this out. We ship this. This is the only line in here. We ship exactly what you're seeing here with PCM, meaning we'll just have a value with it being blank. That simply says you have no plugin. You save that. You open up the console config. All right. So one of the things, I don't know if many of you know, Config Manager is a 64-bit platform, minus one thing, the console. The console is x86. All right. So one of the things you have to do is look at program files x86. Don't make sure that you don't look in the wrong place. You copy this file over. It's going to tell you that it already exists. Now, make sure you don't do that with the console open. All right. It doesn't get unhappy, but it's not exactly happy that you did that. So make sure that console is closed when you copy this over. It's a one-time action, though. Once you've written your plugin, you do it one time, and then after that. Okay, let's start over. I have forgotten somewhere and written bad. What's that? Yeah, that would be the problem, is you have to know how to comment something out correctly. Make sure I do this.
Resave it. Good job.
Whew. Yes.
Demo God.
So there you go. Note to self, do good XML. All right. Once I've done that, I go in here, software updates. So wrong thing. Packages, HR. Now what I want you to see here is I'm going to go ahead and select all these. This takes about 3 minutes. One of the things I'll tell you about the plugin is the default value is 10 seconds. We realize that we're parsing out. If your plugin takes longer than 10 seconds, there's a value in that file. I'm going to go ahead and say analyze package so that I'll go off and show you that, what I mean by that. You will see that it does take a little bit longer. I'm going to go ahead and just show you this value. So let's say you really have an extensive model where you've done a lot of work in the actual custom wrapper. It may take longer for you to interrogate. The value we ship is 10 seconds. I upped it to 25 just to show you an example. So if you can, this is in milliseconds, by the way. So you can see here milliseconds. So if your plugin takes 60 seconds, you can change that to, to 60,000, and then you would get, what that basically means is when we call into your plugin, we're going to wait 60 seconds. If you don't come back, we're going to time out and assume something went wrong. Okay? So the good thing is we're pretty quick to tell you that. And what I mean by that is I'll show you where in the console we'll tell you that it timed out. An example. I'll tell you what happened when I got down here when I was using the plugin is I actually took off from Redmond and forgot to grab the plugin folder. Kind of a slight mistake when that was, I kind of need that. So I asked someone to email it to me. And for those that don't know, when you email an attachment with a PowerShell in it, it tattoos some metadata on it that says this was from the internet. And so the first time I ran it, I kept getting, you've exceeded your timeout limit. So what I did is take my PowerShell script and just run it manually. And they're right, because they were asking me a question. PowerShell was coming back and said, this is from an untrusted source. Do you want to run this or not? So my plugin was failing, all right? But only thing I saw was that it said it timed out. So be prepared for those type of little intricate details. Another thing about PowerShell is that you're using the x86. If you're not familiar, when you do PowerShell, there's 2 versions of that bad boy on your machine. If you spell it right. You'll want to actually change the PowerShell config. How many of you are familiar how to allow it to support both .NET 4.0 as well as .NET 2.0? Do y'all know how to do that in PowerShell? How many of you use PowerShell? You want me to show you how to do this? Is this useful at all? So that, okay, here. So, all right. So what I'll do is I'll say open the file location. You see this config file? It doesn't exist. But if you open this up, and you add this in here, what this will do is tell PowerShell to support both .NET 4.0 as well as 2.0. All right, my plugin was written in .NET 4.0. All right, so in this case I had to add this, otherwise it would fail. So just a little gotcha there. So I feel like that if I'm going to do a demo, I might as well tell you all the things that went wrong trying to get it to work. All right, so hopefully you walk around with little tidbits of information. So in that case, we basically can jump back. So was that a pretty good job wasting time?
Good job.
All right.
Good job.
The reason I did that is because basically you can see now, none of those are manual anymore. They're all automatic. All right, and you're like, how in the world is that possible? There's no detection method stored because my plugin went in there, streamed out an XML file. So one of the things that I want to show you is if you do a search, actually I know where it's at. We give you a nice log file in PCM. So if you just say, CD to %temp, then I got to go here, Notepad, PCM, trace. Ooh, cancel. Don't do that. Big font. This is really useful for understanding what our engine is doing. So the PCM trace log file, I know all of you are going to ask, why did you not put that in the System Center Configuration Manager's normal log directory? Let's talk about that later, all right? But at the end of the day, I want you to know where it is. There's also different settings you can set about the verbosity. How much data do you want us to log? The key thing that I'm showing you here is that you can just, I'm trying to get to the bottom here, is you're just basically, we're telling you what the actual package is, or the XML file that we picked up when the plugin wrote. So what I'm going to do here is if you look here, there's now, Microsoft PCM. Y'all see this directory right here? If I look dir, what in the world? There should be files there. And there's not. All right. There should have been an XML stream there. It looks like it stored it somewhere else. But in either event, I'm going to go ahead and select these. So there is an XML file that we create. Oops, I don't want that. I'll click Convert. I'm going to let it do its thing. And then I'm just going to confirm after the fact that it does have the detection methods that we now pulled from the actual XML stream of data. So with that said, I'm going to, real quick, we've got about what?
16 minutes. 16
minutes. We got plenty of time. So why don't we see if there's any questions? Because we don't have a lot more slides. If you don't mind, the only problem with the question is that you have to go to the microphone. So you have to get front and center. That way that when the recorder can get it. So go ahead and line up. We'll start taking some questions. And so go for it.
With MSI files, say for example with Adobe Acrobat, and we have a MST and several MSPs that follow after that. Yeah. How does this tool handle cases like that?
He's got basically he's got transforms.
You got transforms?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I had some trouble here. Those will actually, MSPs will actually show up as manual.
Okay.
I don't know the actual behavior off the top of my head of what it is that we need to fix. What I'm going to do, let me take that offline with you. I would actually have to ask the developer how he deals with MSP, but that's a great question.
I don't know the answer to that.
Really appreciate that question, but I need to follow up. That's a good one.
One of the wrappers we have is a VB script, which is closing an application before we deploy an application. How is that being handled?
Yeah.
So you would want to kill the application, for lack of better terms? Make sure that the application wasn't open?
Yep. And notify the user first that his application will be closed.
That's up to the application model.
That's a pre-install action, and that the wrapper you would still need a wrapper.
You would still need to do that.
Yeah.
So So one of the things that I've had in the past is that we're not killing the use of all wrappers. What we're basically doing is saying to take advantage of the app model, your best bet is to focus on reducing the size of the wrapper, building more on the platform using the strengths of supersedent requirement rules and some of that that's in the app model. You can use that to your advantage. But so you would still, if you want to do that action, you would still need to use that functionality, but you would just have a very small wrapper. So you would provide the information we need, move it to the app model, but then you would need to use the script type to actually tell it to do whatever you want to do.
Actually, I would say you'd have to evaluate if you still need your script, because if really all you're doing is notifying the user there's a new version, and then you're going to kill it and then reinstall it and start it up again for them. If you use supersedence in the app model, they'll probably get a notification bubble that says there's a new version, and then they would have to kill it, and then they would have to launch the new version. So that's one way to get around it.
That's interesting, because yesterday in the session it was mentioned that superseded should not be used as a best practice. So.
Okay. Well, that's the product teams. I guess they don't technically support it.
All right.
So here, you saw that it completed. I think we started taking questions. We mass exodus.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Sorry.
Oops. Didn't mean for that to happen. But let's go ahead and take a look here. Everything's been converted. All right. Status. You look in here. You actually see. Now, one thing you notice, we didn't create the HR folder. You will need to reorganize them again once you've got them in there. We don't do that. So if I go ahead and take a quick peek at this, just to prove that the actual plugin worked. I do that every time.
Yeah.
You can see that here we've actually detected that there was a detection method very similar. So basically you can do this if you do a little bit of work with the plugin, and once you've done it, you can do a bulk migration is what it ends up, because then they'll all show up automatic and you can select them all and convert them. Okay. So with that said, I'm going to go and we'll switch back to our slides. This is back exactly, I stole the words. I basically am saying like post and pre-actions. There's certain things that we don't do that the app model simply doesn't support. We're not advocating that everything is going to work with this plugin.
Right.
But as we said, it does allow you to do this. Microsoft is a very good example where we've actually migrated to a very small, thin PowerShell wrapper to do the work that, you know, in the pre and the post that a lot of folks do. But for the most part, PCM was used to move all of the custom logic that used to exist outside of the package and program is now in part of the actual application model. And you know, once you've understood the app model and the power there, there's a lot to gain from getting into that. So, so basically, we're talking about you would want to cut the features in your wrapper that are the same exact thing in the application model. So,
all right, wrapping it up. So,
he had a question here.
Our new thinner, lighter, faster
You mean the
wrapper?
MSIT? I don't like right this second. They're here though. I know somebody that knows somebody, kind of deal. So if you want to see it, I'm happy to grab those folks and you can take a peek at it.
Yeah. So sort of just, these are our key takeaways. Basically just, you know, wrapping it up, I want you to analyze your packaging programs after you migrate from 2007 to 2012. Use the offline reports to drive your conversion strategy. Convert the easy ones first. You'll have a bunch of automatics, convert those first. And then if you have common issues or patterns or you have some kind of templates that you want to build, create a plugin for that. Lastly, how can you get it? Today it's available on the Download Center. Sim shipped with Config Manager 2012. This is Chris's blog that talks about, you know, some of the features and functionalities, more details about what we showed you today.
And I haven't blogged yet, but I'm going to, the demo, so you can see it and play with it to your heart's content. Try to reproduce exactly what I did, so that's what that location is. I probably will figure out what MSP is the problem, and I'll blog about that because I just happen to. The one-line code of at time is Micah Smith. He's a developer. Yep. He's the primary developer on it, so it is an MSDN, so he does like to be a developer. So a lot of his posts are focused on being a developer, but he has put some interesting information out there. The one thing that I want to stress is, well, two things. One, obviously, make sure we do listen to your feedback. We actually want to hear from you. I feel we both feel pretty privileged to have the opportunity. You all fly down here. You want your best use of your 75 minutes. So thank you for coming. Secondly, is what I love about Twitter is that something's going to pop in your head and it's going to drive you crazy that you didn't ask it. The great thing is anonymously, if you will use that pound MMS B323,
yeah, right.
You can ask your question, and guess what? Not only are Christina and I going to watch that, but I've got the mothership, all the development, the entire feature team watching that hashtag on Twitter, so they can actually go and answer some of those questions. So if you have a burning question, you can use that. And then last but not least, Christina and I both put our business cards up here. Our email's always available for anyone to grab us and ask a question. But before we leave, how many of you are going to use PCM? Okay. Awesome. That's what we wanted to know. How many of you think it's actually going to meet your needs? Not quite as many.
Okay, good.
All right. Well, that's the good thing, is that PCM is an evolving technology, as they would say. If it doesn't meet your needs, that's a great reason to contact us and let us know why it doesn't meet your needs, and let's see if we can't do something to help you out. But the end goal is get to that app model. So on behalf of Christina and myself, thank you very much for coming. All right.
Cheers.